Yeah, I know that Season 7 is literally around the corner, but I'm sure if you hop into a DeLorean real quick, it should make things a little better. And while I don't think Season 6 was as good as Season 5, I still enjoyed the vast majority of the episodes we were given, with only 5 episodes failing to obtain a green flag rating. But which 5 episodes were good enough to make it onto my top 5 favorite episodes list? Well, reach up there and pull your belts tight one more time. This is my top 5 favorite episodes of MLP Season 6. "28 Pranks Later." I'll be honest, when I read the plot summary for this episode the night before it aired, I was a tad skeptical. I mean, the last time Rainbow took something too far and her friends had to show her that what she was doing was wrong, you get the idea. But wow, was this an enjoyable episode. Most of the pranks that Rainbow Dash pulled were not only funny, like the return of the scroll spam from Season 1 or poking fun at Cheerilee in her classroom, but a few were also pretty clever. That cake prank of switching out Rarity's sewing machine with a cake replica was actually pretty genius. Plus, Rarity and Sweetie Belle get free cake. Who could hate that? Or managing to sneak AJ and her whole bed out to the pig pen without waking Applejack or setting off her alarm? That's just impressive. Also, I can't stress enough how this episode gave us one of, if not the greatest Pinky face of all time.
Boo.
But the humor wasn't the only strong point of 28 Pranks Later. As my good buddy Wooden Sword stressed, the zombie ponies were awesome because zombies are just awesome, okay? The entire last act with the Zompony invasion was really well done and dripping with a dreadful atmosphere. I loved how the colors were grayed out to illustrate a supposed undead world. And the build-up to Dash's town-sized prank and the Zompony prank on Dash was wonderfully paced. One of the best-paced episodes of MLP in my opinion. And of course, 28 Pranks Later also beautifully detail not only a lesson about taking something too far, but it also shows the proper way of giving someone a taste of their own medicine. The town's ponies in 4 of the main 6 all took Rainbow's pranks until they just got out of control and everyone had to seek out Pinky to talk to Rainbow, but when that didn't work, they used revenge as a last means. When all other methods have failed, giving someone a taste of their own medicine sometimes is all you can do, and saving it for the last resort is the right way to do it. 28 Pranks Later was just an enjoyable, funny episode with a great lesson about learning to dial things down a notch. The Saddle Row Review. This episode. Let me tell you, this episode was such a treat. I hadn't laughed so hard at an episode since Make New Friends But Keep Discord until the Saddle Row Review aired, and I wasn't expecting it to be so hilarious. Without a doubt, this was the funniest episode of Season 6 and one of the funniest episodes in the entire series. And truthfully, it's not that strong plot-wise, but I'm not saying it's weak either. This episode was definitely focused more on comedy, and that's not a bad thing at all. I think it's good every once in a while to have just a fun, humor-driven episode, and the writers nailed it here. From everyone's anxiety of Rarity reading the review in the paper at the beginning, Pinky getting a hallucination of a devil and angel Rarity in DJ Pone 3's nightclub above the boutique, the duplicate Pinky in the background of the cafe, Fluttershy having the raccoons turn on and chase her, to Twilight practically groveling to organize the clothing shipments, I was grinning and laughing from start to finish on this episode. The cutaways to the characters reciting the story were great too. I especially loved at the beginning they started out with Rarity saying she was nothing but confident, and each clip of the characters' responses gradually got worse and worse until Applejack said it was a disaster. And even though I stated that Saddle Row Review wasn't that strong plot-wise, there was a bit of a lesson of just do things you are asked the way you think they should be done, especially if your friend trusts you yourself to do it since they chose you for a reason. I'll also say that the pony who rented out the space for Rarity and his daughter weren't too memorable of characters, but still, all of the jokes within the episode are consistently paced and work, and those are what land Saddle Row Review as number 4 on my list. Yeah, I'm sorry I don't really have too much to say about this one, but it's just such a fun comedic thrill to watch, I'd be ashamed of myself for not including it on my list. No Second Prances. Seeing how well Starlight and Spike worked together in the Season 6 premiere, I was pretty intrigued with how the writers would follow up Starlight's character. And boy did No Second Prances strike the right chords with me. It wasn't just a good slice of life episode about the anxiety of making a new friend on your own, but the humor was extremely well balanced with the slice of life elements. The first act with Starlight trying to make new friends practically had me in stitches. Both Rainbow and Big Mac's freakouts were simply glorious. And of course, like with 28 Pranks Later, the writers gave us another memorable MLP face when Starlight asked Rainbow what a Wonderbolt was. But let's not forget we also got a bit of a cranky Celestia in this episode. She never uttered a word, but her body language was more than enough. I loved her twirling the fork around with her magic, waiting for Starlight to show up to dinner, and of course, her exasperated groan when Cranky asked her, "How do you get your hair to do that all the time?" It's just nice sometimes to get a Celestia that's not always bright and cheerful and is more just like a normal character. Now, as for Trixie and Starlight, I absolutely adored their friendship. Trying to destroy Twilight and her friends is an odd thing to have in common with each other, but it works. And I like how they met in a more relaxed environment in the spa. I see it as kind of like two people meeting in a bookstore or a video store. You know, those things that used to exist before Amazon and Netflix came around. And finding a movie or book series that they love. It's a really natural way of making friends with others. Most friendships do occur when people least expect it, and their friendship never once felt forced to me. What I liked most about their friendship is they both had the same goal: redemption. The two only wanted to turn back on their misdeeds of the past and start off with a clean slate, something that's much easier to do when you have someone going through the same problem. But you know, the duo had some really tender moments as well. The reunion backstage was just so heartwarming, especially after seeing Starlight shedding a few tears and Trixie so disenchanted while she was on stage. The poor mayor was so heartbroken about losing Starlight as a friend that she just didn't care about what she loved doing the most: entertaining ponies. I felt the pain of both Starlight and Trixie and wanted their friendship to work out, and I'm very happy it did. But I also like that Twilight learned a valuable lesson that she can't micromanage Starlight or order her to stay away from Trixie, or even force her into friendships with ponies she doesn't want to be friends with. It all came down to trust. Twilight learned that if she really doesn't trust Starlight to make her own decisions, whether or not they work out, then why should Starlight trust Twilight to be her teacher? To make a long story short, too late! This is one of the few episodes that instantly comes to mind when I think of Season 6. It's just a nice, tender story that wasn't afraid of throwing in a few good gags every now and then to keep everything balanced. Top Bolt. Oh, my need for speed was quenched with this episode. I can say without a doubt that this is my favorite Wonderbolt episode ever, finally knocking Wonderbolt's Academy from the coveted spot. Of course, if you've already seen my review of the episode, you already know how much I love the absolute brilliant homage to Top Gun. Yes, I know Wonderbolt's Academy was also a nod to Top Gun, but Top Bolt just went deeper into parodying the Tom Cruise classic. The best part is, the nods to the movie weren't crammed down your throat like a certain Seth MacFarlane show would do. They were heavy enough for fans of the movie to understand, but they were also light enough that the episode still had its own wings to fly on. That classroom scene was a perfect rendition of Maverick and Viper's conversation from the movie. Rainbow and Twilight discovering that Sky Stinger has lost his confidence was a smaller nod to another scene, and if you haven't seen Top Gun yet, I'll leave that scene unspoiled for you. But my favorite tribute to Top Gun was definitely near the end when Sky Stinger and Vapor Trail pass their final evaluation and Sky proclaims that Vapor can be his wing pony anytime. Other than the story behind this episode, there were a lot of great gags, like Rainbow falling asleep a few seconds after Twilight starts her lecture and the latter pony blares an air horn to wake her up, Spitfire admitting she loves blowing her whistle and yelling at cadets, and of course, Twilight and Rainbow's faces after Vapor Trail blurts out that she is the reason why Sky Stinger is so good. Animators, can you please keep up your consistently good expressions for the rest of the show? Plus, I can't talk about Top Bolt without mentioning how the writers brought back Twilight's giddiness about classrooms and learning. She was just so cute when Spitfire mentioned the classroom portion and when she squealed excitedly to Rainbow about teaching the students. All of this aside, I do also love how Sky and Vapor both suffered from confidence problems, even though they're not the same problems. If you go into something with far too much confidence in yourself, you may fail spectacularly because you'll miss important details or steps or not even try hard at all, like Sky skipping practice. However, if you don't try because you don't think you'll succeed or you don't know if this is truly what you want, you'll always fail because you'll never know what you're capable of. Like with Vapor always taking a backseat to push Sky. You need to go into something with enough confidence to try, but you should always find time to take a step back and find ways to improve. I also like how the episode illustrated that helping a friend is perfectly fine, but there does come a point where you need to allow your friends to try on their own, whether or not they'll succeed. And I do love how Sky and Vapor became friends, which over the years led up to Sky being cocky and Vapor being tentative because of how their families treated the two of them. All in all, Top Bolt was such an amazing episode with lovable characters, great jokes, a good story, a very important moral, and of course, shows the right way to pay homage to a movie, and it would have been a crime to not put it on my list. The times they are a changeling. It's really safe to say that, whether or not you like Spike, Season 6 was his best season by far. Even right from the get-go in the season premiere with the Crystalling, I just loved how supportive and encouraging he was with Starlight trying to reconcile with Sunburst. He had his own goal to help Starlight and tried everything he could, even going off Twilight's list she wrote to help his new friend succeed. Flash forward to the Gauntlet of Fire, and we have not only a great new dragon character with Ember, but Spike, at the time, at his most selfless he'd ever been. Risking his neck to become the new Dragon Lord so Garble couldn't take over the dragons, and knowing that if he won, he rarely, if ever at all, would get to see his friends again. Now thankfully he gave the helm of Dragon Lord to Ember, but the fact that he went in knowing what he would give up for the sake of Equestria was a testament to how he's been growing since the show started. But flash forward yet again to the times they are a changeling. Just wow. The first sign that this would be a great Spike episode was the fact that Spike was shown to be sick of all the attention he was getting in the Crystal Empire by trying to don a disguise. Plus, Shining Armor puts him in charge of the search party to find any trace of a supposed changeling roaming about, and unlike in Princess Spike, he doesn't let that power go to his head. Yes, he likes that the guards immediately do what he says, but he doesn't abuse it by making them do stupid stuff. He just goes about trying to find the changeling like Shining Armor and Cadance wanted him to do. And then Thorax. I just loved this guy. Not just because he was used for the message of friends can come from the most unexpected of places, but he was just really sympathetic. Born into a world he was actually terrified of, but that was all he knew until that fateful day in the Season 2 finale. You know, it's almost like he was Finn from The Force Awakens, actually. My favorite thing about Spike and Thorax's friendship, however, is the fact that Spike used his celebrity status in the Crystal Empire to allow Thorax a huge taste of friendliness by basking in the positivity and kindness from the Crystal Ponies. Even though it was used in a montage, this is just great character development and a show of maturity for Spike, and is what I point to for how amazingly far Spike came in Season 6. What the heck?
Mr. Left Turn, how about that song that ruins the pacing at the end?
Oh boy. Yeah, I knew I was gonna have to address this. I understand people have an issue with Spike's song at the end of the episode, and a part of me can agree with them considering my stance on characters breaking out into song. However, think about this. Spike was pretty racked with emotional guilt for unintentionally betraying Thorax in a tight situation, and when he brought Thorax back to the throne room, he had one chance to convince everyone in that room that Thorax is on their side. Referring back to Gauntlet of Fire that Spike risked possibly never seeing his friends again, he risked a lot more in this episode. If he failed to convince everyone that Thorax was good, Thorax would have easily been thrown in the dungeon with probably never seeing the light of day again. Spike probably would have been charged with conspiring against the Crystal Empire and maybe even trying to bring harm to Flurryheart, possibly being branded a traitor to Equestria, and he would have lost the trust of not only Cadance and Shining Armor, but Twilight as well, which would have hurt him more than anything. Spike had to throw a Hail Mary, go for broke, and throw it all on the line to show everyone that he was telling the truth. And I think a regular speech wouldn't have cut it. A song straight from the heart is more powerful than a speech in my opinion, and it definitely would have hooked everyone in the throne room far better than a speech which they were guessing he would do. Spike had to go all out, and to me, he made it count. When someone or even a group of people have pretty much made up their minds, you have to do something drastic to get them to consider changing their minds, and that's why I like Spike's song at the end. Not to mention, it's a very sweet ballad that I couldn't stop humming for days after the episode aired. But I also want to stress that if you hated the song or thought it ruined the pacing, I understand where you're coming from, because normally I hate characters breaking out into songs, and I honestly wouldn't bother debating anyone because a part of me agrees with you. The Times They Are a Changeling was just a phenomenal moment for Spike in the show that proved being a true friend is more important than being popular or famous, and that a friend can be anyone and come from anywhere, no matter how many of your other friends disagree with it, which is why it got the checkered flag rating. Plus, it was also the start for the downfall of Chrysalis's reign of the Changelings. And those were my 5 favorite episodes of Season 6. Just remember that if you disagree with any of these episodes, that's great. Differing opinions are healthy and they can help everyone gain a better understanding of something than just listening to one point of view. But, which episodes are on your top 5 list? Post them down in the comments below, and thanks for watching. I'm Mr. Left Turn. I'll see you when I get back from the track.